Good morning, everyone. Today I am going to talk about body mechanics. We're talking about medical safety. So we're talking about how in the medical field, why you as a employee should be aware of your body mechanics. So it's very important to make sure that you're not injured, because if you're injured, then you're going to be no help to your patients. And I would say in general, this is something that you should just be aware of, because nobody wants to get hurt doing something as simple as maybe picking something up. So I'll explain what this is. It's just a little, I guess, tidbit on it. There's tons of other things that are important to take into account when you are working in the medical field in relation to safety, but this is just movement related. So this is the first of two different lectures. Just a reminder, you are expected to take notes on this on lined paper, making sure that you're writing your name neatly at the top of it, and then you are scanning it and submitting these notes onto Classroom before the end of the period. So this lecture will not take the whole class time. I like to record my lectures just so that you're able to stop and start if you need to, or go back to things. So yeah, if you have any questions, things like that, feel free to ask me. We will talk about this stuff when we return to class on Monday. All right, so body mechanics. Body mechanics in general, it's just the correct use of your body in your daily activities. So those are things that we talked about with European activity, but bending, picking up things, twisting, rotating, that sort of stuff. So it's just very important to be aware of this, because if you're incorrectly lifting something, you're incorrectly maybe transferring a patient from a bed to another bed, you could potentially injure yourself. And then if you injure yourself, you are of no help to anyone, and also you're in pain. So nobody wants to be in pain. But yeah, it's just important to be aware of that. Also, being aware of your posture. I'm sure some of you might be slouched right now. Maybe try to sit up straight. You guys are now in front of a computer screen for several hours a day. So I'm sure you're starting to maybe develop some tension in your neck, maybe in your shoulders. Just be aware of your posture. Try to sit up straight. Try to get up and move around. That way, you're not causing muscle strains, things like that are unnecessary. So like I said, yeah, you're wanting to use proper body mechanics because you want to avoid putting strain on a muscle. So a strain is the medical way of saying a torn muscle. So I don't know if anyone in here has ever torn a muscle, but just the medical way of saying it is called a strain. So that's when the muscle fibers actually pull apart. And you can have different types of severity, but usually with a muscle strain, you're going to have pain. So it's just trying to avoid pain, which could potentially cause you to not be able to work or not work as fully as you need to be. And if you are working in healthcare, these jobs are physically demanding. You're often not sitting at a desk all day. You're moving around, you're interacting with people. That's why I personally like it. And I would say the majority of people who work in healthcare enjoy it as well. But again, yeah, you don't want to make your job more difficult than it already is. Using proper body mechanics, using your muscles to the best of their ability, is going to allow you to make lifting easier, pulling easier, and pushing easier. So normally, if I were to be teaching you guys in front of you, like in a classroom, I would probably ask you questions like, who knows the proper way to pick up something? Who knows what is the strongest part of your body? So answers to that, your glutes or your butt region is the strongest muscle area in your body. And so you want to utilize the strongest muscles to help you lift, pull, that sort of thing. I am not the biggest person. I'm not very strong either. And so sometimes I do work with athletes that are much bigger than me. I try to use proper body mechanics. I try to lift with my legs as much as I can. That way I'm not injuring myself, because again, if I get hurt, no help to my patients. I am the school's only athletic trainer. We don't really have substitute athletic trainers. So if I were to, let's say, throw my back out and I can't do my job, there's not really going to be anyone that's going to be able to fulfill it for me. And then, yeah, biggest things is just preventing injury to yourself and also to others. So if you were to injure yourself and you're carrying someone, you could potentially drop them. And then that could be, let's say, like a lawsuit. So again, you're trying to avoid that sort of thing. So it's just important to be aware of it. And like I said, same thing. You guys are sitting in front of your desks for several hours. So just sitting up straight, trying not to hunch over. I I'm guilty of this too. So just, you don't want to make things hurt worse than I guess they did before. Some rules of good body mechanics. So you want to maintain a broad base of support. So again, if I was teaching you guys normally, I would be demonstrating this. Broad base of support just means that if you are going to pick something up, you want to make sure that your feet are wide. So you should have a gap in between your feet that's probably shoulder length at least, or shoulder width. You don't want to put your feet close together, because if your feet are close together, then you're not going to have as much stability. So you're trying to be stable. And then you're wanting to make sure that you're not only bending at your waist, so you're not like leaning forward, but you're also bending your knees so that you're getting close to whatever it is that you're trying to pick up, and you're not using your back. So as an athletic trainer, obviously I'm dealing with a lot of injuries to muscles and bones. Probably one of the most common injuries that I see in my training room, other than like an ankle sprain, is somebody will injure their lower back. And oftentimes I will say, how did this happen? And I would probably say, at least in a high school setting, about 80% of the time, it's because they were doing deadlifts incorrectly. So if you're not familiar with a deadlift is when you basically bend at your hips and you kind of bend your knees, but you just lift something up. And so in order to do it properly, you need to make sure that your back is completely flat. A lot of people will end up like rounding their back. And so because of that position that their body's in, that puts stretch on your muscles, and then you can eventually damage it. So you're wanting to utilize your strongest muscle. So if you're someone that's very strong upper body wise, then great. But I guarantee, even if you're strong upper body, you have one of those, you still probably want to lift with your legs. And then you're using your body weight to push and pull an object. You're trying, if you were to carry, let's say, a person, which you most likely will never carry someone on your own if you're working like in a hospital setting. But let's say for me, I sometimes will drop off heavy Gatorade coolers. I think when those Gatorade coolers are filled, they're about 80 pounds. Again, I'm not the strongest person. And so if I were to try to carry something that's that heavy, I would try to pick it up and kind of bear hug it and hold it close to my body, because then I'm able to basically utilize the muscles in my back and the muscles in my legs to, hold it. And then also, I ask people for help. So if you have people around you that can help you move a patient, you want to wait until you have some support. You don't want to lift them by yourself, because again, you're going to be of no use if you are injured. So those are just some examples and pictures to kind of demonstrate this. Again, I'm not showing you guys in person, but you can see that this lady right here is bending at her knees. Same thing, bending at her knees, bending at her hips, and then they are lifting it up. What you don't want to see, and what I was talking about, her back's kind of rounded, but you want to make sure that your back stays upright. So both of their backs are flat. If you start to have a curve that's more than this, that's where you end up having that injury. So it's important to make sure that you're just not keeping your legs locked and leaning forward right here. You're bending your knees, bending your hips, because then you're able to use your glutes, your thigh muscles, that sort of thing to lift, which are much stronger than your lower back and your upper body. Some other things to keep in mind. You want to try to avoid twisting your body as you work. So we're going to go back to that picture. I don't know if the next slide has it, but we're going to go back to the next picture. So if this person were to be lifting or picking something up, as she's picking it up, it's probably not a good idea to start moving in a twisting direction as she is lifting it. If she wants to, let's say she has something over here to move, or patient you're holding with another person and you're going to put them on the bed, you need to just be aware of doing that once you have gotten in this position. So you wouldn't want to do it while you're in the process of standing. You would want to wait till you get up here and then you can rotate, because if you're lifting and rotating, that's where you can tend to have injuries as well. Making sure that you're getting help if a patient or object is too heavy to lift alone. There are assistive equipments in hospital settings. So I usually have a couple students each year that have volunteered in hospitals. I'm not sure if any of you guys have volunteered in a hospital before, maybe you're aware of this from maybe a TV show, but they do have mechanical lifts. So I'll show you a picture of what that looks like on the, I think it's the next slide. But let's say your patient is completely immobile. Maybe they're paralyzed. Maybe they just recently had surgery on a fractured hip, something like that, where they're not able to walk. They do make these types of chairs where you basically put the patient in it and it moves them. And that's one way that you can avoid injuring yourself. They also make these things called transfer belts or gait belts. And what they are, you basically put a belt around a patient and it has like a little strap. It kind of looks like you have a person on a leash, but it's around their waist. And so this is for someone who is partially mobile. So maybe they are just learning how to rewalk, or maybe they've been on bed rest for a while and they can't walk properly, or maybe they're elderly. So they're able to move, but it's intended to basically pull them back if they were to potentially fall. So that's one way too that you can try to catch someone without actually injuring yourself in the process. And then you guys, I'm sure, are all familiar with wheelchairs. That would be another way to transport a patient as well without hurting yourself. These are just pictures. Ergonomics, this will be the last topic we cover today. Ergonomics is how you try to adapt your environment so that you are not causing more injury to yourself. So there are some examples on, I think, the next slide, but it's just looking at your area of work and trying to find things to make it so that you're not injured. So give you guys an example. Most of you guys are probably sitting at a desk of some sort. When you are sitting at your desk, in order to not maybe cause injury to your lower back, it's important to make sure that your hips are above your knees when you're sitting. So maybe you can take a look at that right now if you're sitting right now, but you want to make sure that your knees are angled down. So hip height should be higher than your knee height. And it doesn't have to be huge, it can be slight. But you're just wanting to do that because if your knees are higher than your hips, you can potentially cause like strain on your hip flexor muscles, things like that. Desk height is also another thing. So I'm sure if you were at Sunny Hills last year, you've probably seen a couple teachers have desks where they're standing. So standing desks are actually a way to also prevent injury. And that is because when you're standing up, you're not hunched over as much. You're more aware of your posture. Same thing, you're using more muscles when you're standing. So it's not putting as much fatigue on your upper body, your neck, your back, that sort of thing. Because when you're standing, you're using your legs, you're using your glutes, that sort of thing. And these are just some examples. Like I said, chair height is important. I would say if you notice that your knees are higher than your hips, you might want to adjust your chair height a little bit higher. What else? They do make keyboards for offices where they're slightly angled so that you're not flexing your wrist, because some people, if you work in an office job, will develop carpal tunnel, which is basically inflammation of your wrist area. And then this is just an example of a type of cart. So it's a standing cart. It allows the person who's pushing it to be standing instead of it being low to the ground. And that way they're able to utilize, again, their legs, their glutes, and not their lower back. This is what I was talking about with the mechanical lift. So this is the lifts that they have. This would be next to someone's hospital bed, and you would place the patient in there, and then that's how you could transport them. All right, very last thing. So back supports are something that maybe you've seen. I know when I've gone to the gym, I've seen people wear back supports, but depending on what your position is in a healthcare facility, or if you have a previous issue with your lower back, they might recommend that you actually get a back support brace. And so it just provides more support. It also allows for you to not move so I guess it doesn't allow, it hinders your ability to move or bend as much. It's kind of controversial. So some people believe that, and that's with any bracing, that bracing basically causes a person to be reliable on it, and then their muscles diminish. But again, if somebody is at risk, they've already had a previous history of maybe a lower back injury, then a back brace probably is a good idea to just give them that extra support. And then, like I mentioned, braces in general, there's so much controversy on them, but making sure that any brace that you wear is fit tightly. I often will see people wearing like knee braces, especially, and oftentimes it looks like it's about to fall off their knee or it's like falling down. It's probably not very effective if it's not fitting snugly. So you want something that's fitting tight, but you don't want it to be so loose that it ends up, falling off of the person, or just not being tight enough to actually be supportive. So this is just a picture of the back braces that I was talking about. And I believe this is the end of the lecture for today. So today's class is just you taking notes, making sure that you submit them by the end of the period. We will talk about this. You guys will actually have an assignment on our next day of class, kind of going over reviewing this stuff. So if you're finished with notes, obviously scan them, submit them onto Classroom, and then you are done for today. Also, do not forget, you still need to submit your parent signed syllabus form. So just get that done by tonight, turn these in by the end of the period. And I hope you guys have a really good rest of your weekend. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. But yeah, we're done for today. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.